Hello, Adam, MidPointe Library's Digital and Special Collections Archivist here. For today's video, we will be doing a photographic tour of historic Monroe, Ohio. To do this, we will be examining the digitized glass plate negatives of Marion G. Warner, a local Monroe businessman and amateur photographer who was alive from 1861 to 1922. The full collection of Warner's photographs is available on the MidPointe Digital Archives in the Marion G. Warner Photograph Collection. A big shout out goes to the Monroe Historical Society for curating the collection and making them available to the library, so that we can make them available to you. One final note before we set off on the tour. The photographs all shown typically date from 1900 to 1920. Since then, the street names in Monroe have changed. So, for historical accuracy purposes, I primarily use the name of the streets as they would have been at the time of the photograph, along with the name of the building, place, or organization. No worries, I'll mention the present day name. Now, let's start the tour. To begin, let's compare the geographic boundaries of today's Lemon Township in Monroe with that of 1914. Up first is Lemon Township 2020, courtesy of Google Maps. Next is Lemon Township 1914, courtesy of the 1914 Butler County Atlas and Pictorial Review. Now, here's the city of Monroe from 2020, again courtesy of Google Maps. And here is the village of Monroe from the 1914 Butler County Atlas and Pictorial Review. Take notice of the different street names. I'll be using this map throughout as a reference point. To commence the tour in earnest, we begin with this photograph taken in 1911. The photograph was taken south of Monroe, most likely standing along the Great Miami Pike, present-day Cincinnati-Dayton Road. With this next photograph, undated, we are 1 mile south of Monroe on the Great Miami Pike. We get a much better view of the village and can see several landmarks that we will be visiting later. Now we stand atop the First Presbyterian Church and former Monroe Presbyterian Academy, granting us a bird's eye view of Monroe. We specifically get a great view of the Great Miami Pike as it enters the village and transitions into Pike Street, present-day Main Street. On the bottom of the photograph, going left to right, is South Street, present-day Lebanon Street. On the left here, we see the Mount Pleasant United Presbyterian Church, a place we will visit in full later. This house here still stands at present-day 240 South Main Street. Turning east, and most likely still on top of the First Presbyterian Church, we get a good look at the intersection of South Street on the left and Main Street, present-day Old Street, on the right. In the distance is the Monroe Methodist Church, our next stop. In this photograph, we are standing on Center Street, present-day Church Street, looking east. Dead center is the Monroe Methodist Church. Here's the 1914 map, again for reference. This photograph, dated February 10, 1918, gives us another view of Monroe Methodist Church, which organized in 1823. Nathaniel Sackett, founder of Monroe, is also considered the founding father of the church. Members met in Sackett's home from 1818 to 1823. In 1861, the brick church seen here was completed and was in use until 1969, when the tornado that swept through Monroe brought down the steeple. The damaged church was replaced in 1970 with this building located at 206 East Avenue. The congregation is now known as the Monroe United Methodist Church. In this undated photograph, we return to the 1861 church and get a view of it from East Avenue, which is one of the few streets to not have changed names. We wrap up with two more views of the church from the other side, still standing on East Avenue. Both photographs are undated. Let's journey back down Center Street to the intersection with Main Street, present-day Old Street. In this photograph, dated February 10, 1918, we yet again see the Monroe Methodist Church. We also get a good view of the Center and Main Street intersection. These three houses on the corners still stand. This undated photograph shows a close-up of the house that was on the left. Its present-day address is 138 Old Street. Also located on Center Street is this house, home to Lewis H. Bunnell, a local grocer. The 1910 U.S. Census shows that Bunnell was 49 at the time and is a merchant. The 1920 census lists Bunnell as living in Lebanon, but serving as Monroe's postmaster. On November 29, 1930, Bunnell died of a gunshot wound that was deemed homicidal. We continue our tour by proceeding down Main Street, present-day Old Street. Despite being called Main Street, it is not truly the heart of town. That distinction belongs to Pike Street, which we will see shortly. Starting on the south side of Main Street, we see the Mound Cemetery. The Mound Cemetery Association organized in 1859. The site was originally a burial for Native Americans. The cemetery also serves as a resting place for many of Monroe's white pioneers, such as Nathaniel Sackett and Marion G. Warner himself. Not a pioneer, though Marion isn't yet buried here in this undated photograph. Moving north along Main Street, we come to the Alexander home, as identified by Ruth Cast. This photograph is undated. Up next is a photograph of Main Street looking south, just past the intersection with Center Street. This photograph is dated February 28, 1910. Now we see the corner of Main Street and High Street, present-day Elm Street, and what may be the Fogarty House in this undated photograph. We finish up with two views of the north end of the street. The photograph on the left is looking south. You can see the steeple of the Methodist Church peeking through, while the photograph on the right looks north. Before taking a look at Pike Street, we'll take this moment to revisit the First Presbyterian Church, the spot from which we got a bird's eye view of Monroe near the beginning of our tour. The First Presbyterian Church can be found off to the side of the intersection of the Great Miami Pike, Pike Street, and South Street. In the present, that would be the intersection of Cincinnati-Dayton Road, Main Street, and Lebanon Street. Around 1850, an academy was established by the First Presbyterian Church, a separate entity from the Mount Pleasant United Presbyterian Church. The academy provided education for boys of the area beyond elementary grade levels. Around 1880, the school was closed, and the building was used by the First Presbyterian Church as their sanctuary. From the First Presbyterian Church, we head north, traveling along Pike Street, present-day Main Street. To get a nice view of Pike Street, we return to the bird's eye view photograph seen earlier. Pike Street runs right down the middle. The next photograph we will see was taken from roughly this spot. This photograph shows the Great Miami Pike transition into Main Street. Up in the distance is the intersection with South Street. As mentioned earlier, the house in the center of the photograph still stands. In this photograph, we stand further north, closer to South Street. Moving slightly further north again, now past South Street, this undated photograph gives us a good view of two local businesses. On the far right, we see the W.B. Jotter Company, which manufactured farming equipment and wagons. To its left, we see a hotel, best known as the Red Onion. This building still stands and is presently located at 214 South Main Street. Moving across the street, this photograph gives us a view of the barn that's across from W.B. Jotter's. Featured in this photograph is Village Hall on the left. Moving along, we now get a good look at the heart of Pike Street. This photograph from January 3rd, 1910 shows a nice view of both sides of the street. On the left here, you can see Bunnell's store. And here is a close-up of Bunnell's store dated November 11th, 1907. Turning to our right, this photograph gives us a view of the east side of Pike Street. Specifically, you can see the Monroe National Bank. The Monroe National Bank was founded in 1905 and opened its doors on November 4th, 1905. In 1910, the bank moved to a new location a few houses down, and I'll talk more about that bank when we visit that location. Moving it a little further north, again looking south, this photo shows the whole of the west side of Pike Street as it was on February 19, 1910. On the right, you see the storefront of J.H. Sig Local Grocer. Here's a close-up of Sig's storefront from 1913. John H. Sig was born in Lemon Township in 1857. Outside of being a grocer, Sig would become postmaster after the death of Bunnell. Returning to Pike Street, we now view what it looked like on January 1st, 1915. The biggest change is a new store, which was C.M. Robinson's Grocery and Hardware. The store was formerly the I.O. Byers Grocery Store. This photograph was taken on March 5th, 1913. Continuing along Pike Street, we now head towards High Street, also referred to as Maple Street, or present-day Elm Street. This undated photograph shows us the Pike and High Street intersection. On the left is J.H. Sig's store. On the right is the Marion G. Warner Dry Goods Store. This building would be the future home of the Monroe National Bank as well. As you may recall, Marion G. Warner is a photographer that created these photos. For his day job, he ran this general store. In 1910, Warner relocated his store and the building was remodeled, becoming the new home of the Monroe National Bank. The Monroe National Bank, now known as First Financial, is still on the same location, just in a new building that was built in 1954. Returning to High Street, this photograph dated January 1910 shows the street looking west from the Pike Street intersection. From here, we will head to the Mount Pleasant United Presbyterian Church. Located on High Street, present-day Elm Street, west of the Pike Street, we find the Mount Pleasant United Presbyterian Church. Seen here in this photograph taken on January 23, 1915, is the church itself. Mount Pleasant was first organized in Kentucky in 1792 and moved to Monroe around 1802. From 1804 to 1807, the church was called the Swamp Creek Congregation. In 1807, the name was changed to Mount Pleasant Associate Reformed Church. After a merger of two national churches in 1858, the church's name was changed to Mount Pleasant United Presbyterian Church. The church seen in this photograph was built in 1854 and served the congregation until 1956, when it was replaced with this church located on the same plot. Now known as the Monroe Presbyterian Church, it can be found at 57 Elm Street. Moving a little further down High Street, our next stop is the Monroe Consolidated School in the 1912 Monroe School. Here we have the Monroe Consolidated School. This four-room building was constructed in 1871. From 1871 to 1881, it was home to elementary grades. In 1881, Monroe's first high school opened in an unused room. This photograph taken on November 25, 1907, shows the school just a few years before it was torn down in 1912 to be replaced by this school, which was located on the same site. Various additions were made to this building. Eventually, it became the Lemon Monroe High School. However, in 1968, the original 1912 portion was torn down. In 2016, the entire school was torn down. Here we actually see the demolition of the Monroe Consolidated School and the construction of the 1912 school. For the final part of our tour, we will take a look at the people in Monroe. Up first, we see an unidentified Boy Scout troop camping trip. The date and location are also unidentified. Here's local Monrovian Gus Doc Hinkle and a couple of his horses. Gus owned a 100-acre farm on the east side of the Great Miami Pike and is listed in the Persian Society of America's registry. Here is the Hughes family posing for a family portrait, followed by an unidentified family of 3. Photographed here on July 28, 1913 is a traveling domestic vacuum cleaner company. Oh no, what is this baby doing out in the snow on December 17, 1914? Next up is an identified man, his hunting dog, and his various pelts. This photograph was taken on February 8, 1915. Here's a Harmon family gathering for a reunion on September 11, 1910, followed by an unidentified young woman and child posing for a photograph taken on February 23, 1913. Finally, we end with this unidentified man leisurely fishing on October 6, 1916. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed the tour. To view the images seen here or more, make sure to check out the Marion G. Warner photograph collection on the MidPointe Digital Archives. See you next time.